for and from our women in public life. I'll start with Professor Akosi Adomako Ampofo, who I describe. That's very powerful. She is a professor of African and Gender Studies. African Association of Africa, and she has many titles. In fact, founding director of the University Center for Gender Studies and Advocacy, as well as the immediate past dean of international affairs. Prof, great to have you. Thanks for joining us on The Point of View.
Thanks for having me, Bernard. And let me just say, I'm no longer the president of African Studies Association. I happily stepped down last April after many years of service. So now there are some younger and more energetic people leading the association.
Wonderful. Happy International Women's Day to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I find you very interesting. I was sort of reflecting on some of your areas of specialty, and for the sake of those who don't know, African knowledge systems, higher education, race and identity politics, gender relations. This is my favorite, masculinities.
I love that one.
And popular culture. It's just amazing. I mean, how are you celebrating the day? What is there anything you do on a day like this beyond reflection?
I think in the past I've really involved myself in celebrations. Today I haven't done anything. I was supposed to teach my gender class today, incidentally. This morning I was just feeling extremely exhausted, and so I wasn't able to go into class. But this evening I'm going to be on joining sisters and brothers at the start of a film week that we are celebrating, International Women's Month. So a number of films about women, African films about women, are going to be shown. So that will be my celebration for myself.
Do you feel like we appreciate the role of women enough in Ghana beyond a day that we celebrate? What are your thoughts? Is it like we forget about gender issues and we just wait for every 8th March, we have an all-female panel, we give some shout-outs to women on air, and then we go back to business as usual? Is that the sense you get in this idea of trying to bridge the gender gap?
Our journey has been checkered. It's been up and it goes down, and then it's up and it's down. So I think we are in a moment where maybe because we are all exhausted and weary and there's so much going on in our nation that it's not as easy to think about vulnerable groups and special groups and so on. But I do feel like we are in a moment where women aren't as fully appreciated as we need to be, or sometimes, or perhaps in addition to that, the contributions aren't sufficiently appreciated. Let me just share a little anecdote. I'm in a WhatsApp group where we celebrate someone, and this morning I was just sharing my frustration about the fact that we couldn't get access to vaccines for infants and children, right? And I have a student whose child needs to be vaccinated. She's at her wit's end. I have a goddaughter whose child needs to be vaccinated. They don't know where to go. So I'm just asking, does anyone happen to know? And my husband's a medic. He doesn't seem to know anywhere we can get vaccines. And in the line of the conversation, it was like, well, in all of this, women, pick up your resilience and your strength and encourage us and to be there for us. And it's yes, it's true. We are resilient and we are strong. But I was thinking, all these mothers, grandmothers, aunties who are going to be struggling to think about how to, deal with children who might now get measles or, God forbid, polio. So I found the response, and I'm sure that it wasn't intended to be dismissive, I'm sure, but it was like, think beyond the immediate, think about what this really will mean for the millions of women in this country if we suddenly have an outbreak of childhood killer diseases, and if the response is going to be, let's look for more resilience from women. It's not, at some point, it's the women are going to break, because there's only so much of burden and of trauma that any human being can carry, and a lot is really being piled on women when there are breakages in the system, when there's illness, when there's hunger. It's women who are called to look after the family, to provide, to care for, to take the elderly to the hospital, to look after the young ones, to put food on the table. So that's a long-winded answer to say that I think there isn't sufficient thought given to how much we contribute and how much of a burden is often carried.
Generally, when we frame a conversation about Women's Day, it inevitably ends up in a conversation about gender equality. And then what we do in the media is to say, okay, let's look at different strata of society. Politics, how many women are ministers? MPs, how many women are ministers? Managing directors of banks, that type of thing. Is that the way to look at this, or should we go beyond simply representation in prominent public life to something much deeper?
It's definitely a start, because there are important sites of decision making, and who occupies those positions has a lot of influence and clout in decisions about, education, educational reform, textbooks, hospital attendance, which diseases get covered by national health insurance, and so forth. There are a whole lot of things that affect our lives that are determined by policy and by the state, by government. So depending on who is sitting in an office and what that person's mindset is and how he or she thinks about an issue, it's going to affect everybody in the society. So if we assume that women may be more likely to be sensitive to certain gender issues than men, then having more women in office, becomes important for everybody and those social issues. And it's also important just from the perspective of optics, because if I don't see somebody like me in office, it is less likely that I will think I can also aspire to that position. So sometimes seeing, you see a visual picture and it's just gray and black suits, somehow you don't even make the connection that that's a place that women can attend. When my children were younger, they assumed that doctors were male because doctors that they saw and the nurses were female. So it is important from the from the optics of it. But as your question suggests, we definitely need to go beyond the mere numbers, and the woman is sensitive to gender issues. And sometimes people deliberately put individuals in offices so that they can be co-opted, or so that they can further their own agenda. And whether you're male or female, you may not necessarily represent a constituency. You're there at somebody else's behest. So we definitely need to go deeper than the numbers, and we need to look at, it's everywhere in our educational system. How many women do we have? What kinds of opportunities do we create to make women stay there? I mean, a simple thing like holding meetings at a certain time of the day. If you hold meetings at 5 p.m., 6 p.m., then you are essentially saying that a lot of women in our culture are not going to be able to be present, because they are also simultaneously expected to go home and, to prepare the evening meal or whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. So there are little things that one can think about to ensure that the terrain makes it possible for women to be there too. Because after all, we're different. We, as human beings, we are different. As gendered persons, we are different, and we all bring something to the table. So it's important for us to make sure that in every area that somebody feels they can make a contribution and has the training and the competencies and the inclination, you make it possible for them to travel that journey, to be present there, to enjoy that space, to be accorded respect for that space, to receive all the across the board. And I'm sorry if I'm rambling. I could go.
No, it's fine. I wanted to sort of gauge. Yes, your answer is much better than simply tokenistic representation, but some people feel this is a good time for women in a sense. I'll give you an example. Legon, the university I attended, of which you are a proud faculty member. I think for the first time we have a vice chancellor who's a woman. We have the council chair who's a woman. We have the chancellor who's a woman as well. I mean, that should count for something, because the idea of equality is not just in the political space. In fact, you've done work in inclusive feminist knowledge. And I believe you have very strong views around academia and some of the patriarchal legacies there as well. How much of how significant is this to have Ghana's
in a certain sense, this there's a coincidental aspect to it, but not entirely. Of course, the chair of council is co-appointed. Government has a hand in the selection of our chair of council. Our chancellor, the government has a voice there as well, even though these go through, the university processes and there are nominations and so forth. When it comes to the vice chancellor, it's an appointed position. People apply, and there's a search party, and candidates are ranked, and those rankings go to council, and council makes the final decision. So yes, it's been a long journey. Professor Nanaba Amfo is not the first woman to have applied to be vice chancellor, but she's the first woman who has made it into that position. And the politics of who sits on the search party, who sits at council, how things are framed, might not necessarily enable a competent woman to emerge as the top candidate. We are fortunate that this time we do have a woman. It's about time, not because a woman must be vice chancellor, but because surely in this day and age, that one wants to see that in a university, sometimes there's a man and sometimes there's a woman. It is not possible that the best candidates are always men. It is, by the law of probability, and we've done some math, it just isn't possible. So yes, that's definitely very important. And it does mean, and I think that in the short time that Prof. Amfo has been in office, it does mean that certain issues that pertain to gender equality, gender equity, women's concerns are more likely to be understood and to be appreciated and to be attended to. It doesn't mean necessarily that suddenly things are going to change, because it's a long history, it's a culture, men and women live together. But you do get a sense that there's a more sensitive appreciation of some of the concerns of women's faculty, staff and students.
I will be joined in studio shortly by Kathleen Addy, who's the chairman of the NCCE, and then Joyce Ba Mukhtari, who's a lawyer and a politician, spokesperson for former President John Mahama. I wanted to ask you, though, Prof, what is Ghana's particular problem? Because the an African issue. You can even call Global South as a peculiar problem. But I feel like Ghana should, how do you see it from a Ghana perspective? What is Ghana's own dimension of the issue, right? Because you've lived here almost all your life. What is it with Ghana and the gender question that needs to be addressed?
That's a tall one. I think that, our gender culture, we take steps forward and we take steps back. And you said that I work on masculinities. I think that we've regressed a bit, I think, in our appreciation of women and women's roles. I think we're in a moment, and you hear it in offhand comments, in the kinds of ways people talk about, let's say, slay queens, or I will be driving and, I'm a hard driver, so I won't let you as much as possible, I will not let you cheat me on the street, let me put it that way, whilst also trying to be a defensive driver. And then somebody will throw an expletive at me, suggesting that I'm a sex worker or something like that. And if you say it in our local languages, it sounds much more abusive. They don't know me from anywhere. They feel that I should have given them a pass on the street, and I do not let them do so. Whereas I'm thinking some years ago, they would have thought, oh, this is a senior citizen, but there's no shame when I look at the ways in which people do not respond to issues that concern women. Which a woman is attacked for being a witch, she's burnt. It gets a passing mention in the media. We hear of girl children being sexually abused, boys as well, but predominantly girls. It barely gets a mention. And then there are issues about politics, the party politics, people's sexualities, that, it's like there's a megaphone. And yet there are deep issues of concern to women in this nation that, barely get a passing mention, or they are treated dismissively, or there's a patronizing, paternalistic response, it's casually thrown aside. Somebody says, oh, Madam Gender, ha ha ha. And then you're talking about something that is serious, that's deep, and somebody just makes that comment. You realize that they really don't see the issues that concern women and girls as serious, and they think, issues of who is running for office might be more important, which bishop is preaching somewhere might be more important. Even look at let me be a bit facetious, look at the pictures of the big men of God on their posters. It's invariably, you see a man centered, and there might be, if he has a first lady in the church, she might be, slightly to the side, and he's standing, and
Very, very interesting. I will take a short break. I hope you stay, and then bring in my other co-panelists. There's a question I have for you, which I'll bring after the break, because it's also 30 years of democracy, 1993 to 2023 as well. So I feel we need to have a conversation about this democracy and what it has brought beyond simply the ability to vote and change governments. And I feel you will be useful there, so please don't go away. Kathleen Addy is joining us. She's the chairperson of the NCCE. Good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Good afternoon.
You've been busy in this job. Now, I need to say a few things about Kathleen before I take the break. So Kathleen, we in media consider her part of us because she's been in civil society for as long as I know. SEPA for many years, CDD as well, and then deputy chairperson NCCE before the chairperson fully. Now trying to conscientize the nation. Very tough job indeed. We'll talk to her as well. Then, of course, Joyce Muntari is also joining us. She's a lawyer and a politician, spokesperson for former President Mahama as well. So these are women playing key roles in academia, in public leadership, and in politics, reflecting on International Women's Day. Stay with us.
We give you extra so you can go further. Pepsodent introduces charcoal and lemon essence. The unique combination of natural essences
Whitens teeth naturally for you and family because every smile matters.
New Pepsodent Herbal. Introducing a unique combination of herbal extracts in an antibacterial toothpaste for strong teeth and healthy gums that protects your family and you. Every smile matters.
Finally, anyone can become Flip, a real estate gaming platform that allows you to play and stand a chance of winning a house or cash or consolidated prizes such as savings towards a house. Simple and easy to play. Visit www.ugoflip.com. Buy a ticket to enter the game. Wait for the end of the game to enjoy the win. Anyone can win. Flip it or own it. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the Gaming Commission of Ghana. Play responsibly, not for persons below 18 years, and gaming can be addictive.
Welcome back to The Point of View. We have a special show tonight. It's International Women's Day special, and we're discussing many things. State of the Nation was delivered by the President today in Parliament, full house. 2023 is also 30 years of this republic. NCC has been discussing that, talking about. Kathleen, you used to do Afrobarometer. Yes. I think my first few interviews with you.
Yes.
And Afrobarometer have these very interesting service to do about democracy.
Yes.
So it's almost like this has prepared you for this. for this. But welcome. Happy International Women's Day.
Thank you. Thank you.
How are you?
Oh, we are bathing in the glow.
How are you? How are we celebrating the day?
Oh, for me, it's actually been just a normal day at work. Okay. Very, very hectic. One thing after the other. You know, I went to see the head of the Church of Pentecost, amongst other and leaders, as we prepare towards the election season. You know, in Ghana, every election is supposed to be the mother of all elections. It's supposed to be the last one that will never come back from. But somehow, there's a coalition that always works together to ensure that you know, we manage to, whatever the outcome is, we manage to cross that bridge when we get there. So it's been extremely hectic. I haven't taken the moment to actually bask in the glow. But maybe this interview will give me that opportunity.
Yes, I know, because NCC has become very important in shaping the national mindset. And I feel like 2023 being 30 years since democracy, it's almost as if this is the year that we have to talk. It seems to me as if we've been talking about that a lot. And why it's important in this year?
For two things. The first one being the 30 years of the Constitution means the 30 years of NCC.
Okay.
It's our anniversary as well, because this is the Constitution that gave birth to the institution. The other reason why we've been talking a lot about the democracy is because of agitations for constitutional reforms and constitutional review. Yeah. And if the Constitution is going to be reformed, if there's going to be any changes, since we are the vanguard of the Constitution by constitutional mandate, we certainly must have a say or a play in it. And so there's been a lot of work has been done. And as far as I'm concerned, all the work that needs to be done has been done. As far as what we want, if we should have a constitutional review, what we would want, the changes we would want. What is left now is a roadmap that takes us to the next couple of steps. I think we've talked about it. Everybody's dreams and aspirations has been reflected right from the 2010 the commission that was set up by former President Mills, and the document that came out of that. There's a whole lot of changes that people desire, and we may not be able to do all of it, but certainly I think that everything that can be said has been said, and for now we're just working towards, you know, defining a roadmap to a point where we are able to say that we've actually got to a point and we are changing it.
Is there a gender dimension to the discussion about our constitution and our democracy, or is more subtle?
Oh, it's not subtle. I mean, the question, the women's question is always important to review. There are very simple things. Even the language of the Constitution is male. You know,
the language is male.
Yes. So we have chairman of this and chairman of that. I am a chairman of something, you know, and this is a very, very small example. It's not really material, but just to say that the Constitution was written from a certain perspective. Not to fault anybody, it was written for its time. But now, you know, we have a bit more consciousness, and some things will change, you know. For instance, for me, what I'd like to see is the push for more women to take up leadership positions, for more women to be in public office, for more women to get elected. But if not, even if you can't make the quota with elections, to make sure that we project a certain number of women in government or in leadership through appointments, because there are several appointments that are made. So all of those things come into play. We want to make sure that the work that women do is recognized as real work. A lot of women are playing multiple roles, juggling full-time career, full-time homemaker, full-time mother, full-time carer, all of those things. How do we ensure that not necessarily, in some cases, remuneration making is less, or is not real, or is not important? If somebody has given up their career to raise a child, raising that child, the child is an asset to the state. We have to look at things in those kinds of contexts. When a woman makes a sacrifice to leave work and raise children, or to take, because when you go on maternity leave and come, by the time you come, things have changed. Like you are some kind of step behind, but it's not really clear, you know, because you've lost time. While you were out there being pregnant, having a child, your male colleagues were working. So naturally they've moved on. You know, how do we as a country get to a point where we recognize that the time that you spend being pregnant and nursing a child is also doing something for the nation? Because the women who do that create children who are assets for the country. So there are lots of gender dimensions to it. We want women to be safe at work. Last year, one of the roundtables we did at NCC was around sexual harassment in the workplace. This is one of the big things in the room. I don't want to use a certain name of a certain animal. I don't want problems. It's one of the big things in the room.
Something in the room.
It's a big something in the room that, you know, people don't talk about. But it's a big issue that we have in this country. Sexual harassment in the workplace, you know. How do we ensure that women feel secure, women feel safe, women feel comfortable? We start in this country when we've seen documentaries about university professors doing all kinds of inappropriate behavior with young ladies, young students. How do we ensure that women feel comfortable, happy, and confident to walk into a classroom knowing that they don't have to do anything extra for the grade they deserve, knowing that they don't have to do anything extra to get the promotion that they deserve, you know? So there are a lot of things, and Women's Day is a day for reflecting on those things.
Wonderful.
I gave an interview today and I said that we talk about women, and because we want women to aspire to their full potential, we all you know, or the woman who was frying those donuts that we used to eat in Adabraka. I'd like to see her here on Women's Day. What is it? What's her life like? You know, what does this mean for her? What are her aspirations for herself, for her daughters?
So it shouldn't just be about the...
No.
Well, of course, we need people like you. Indeed, the question I asked Professor Adoma Kwampofo was that for the first time, Legon, where she is the prominent member, has a VC as a woman,
taken over,
council chair as woman, and then chancellor as woman.
Take it over.
Right? Now, in the first term of this government, the AG was a woman, the CJ was a woman.
Yes.
In fact, in the institution that you run,
yes,
I think after
Larry
Bimi, it's been women.
Yes.
And so that's a hat trick of women.
Yes.
The Electoral Commission, which plays a key role in our democracy, woman. This is also good, right? You need these examples, right?
Oh, absolutely, Bernard. It's important. I mean, young people have to see that everything is possible. You can have it all, and it's different types of women. I am a divorced woman. I have a daughter. I'm raising. I'm co-parenting. Electoral Commission is a married woman. There are different types of women, and so it's not really about being some type of woman before you can do some type of things. I think that signal is also important.
Very interesting. Prof, let me bring you in as we sort of move this along. My next guest will join me soon. I just wanted your Prof. Adumanko, are you there?
I am here, and just to say, very excellent comments from my sister. I can only say
thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof.
I agree with everything that you said.
Thank you.
For people like her, one of the challenges is, when we started interviewing her, you would notice being a woman in public limelight, even the way the headlines were captured, people would be like, somebody can say something as a man and get away with it, and when she says it on the big issue, this is many years ago, she runs into problems. So I credit to her that she's even remained in the public space, right? Much less talk about an appointment. So even when she was coming on as a pundit working for CDD or for Afrobarometer, there was a lot of harassment online. What are your thoughts around that? I was thinking that the people online are more woke, right? They are more, they are open-minded. But we noticed that there's a lot of vitriol targeted at women on social media, which you would think is populated by educated people. So what am I missing here? How come there's a lot of abuse for women in public space on the social media platforms, Prof?
I mean, Bernard, even before you get to social media, in public life, I am sure Kathleen has had this before, that the headline will focus more on what she looked like than what she said. But we don't hear that kind of commentary when a man speaks. The bag she carried, the shoes she wore, whether she was looking good or whatever it is, that kind of focus. We do that. We objectify women. We objectify them so much that in the lives that we live, that when we inhabit social media space, we do the same thing. And it is out of a lack of respect or a failure to really consider the woman's talents and experience and competencies that she brings to the job. You're focusing on her merely as a gendered human being and not as a professional. And I look at somebody like Nanama, who used to work at City, and she speaks boldly, and some of the commentary when she tweets, it has absolutely nothing to do with the statement that she has made. And people are just throwing out abuse. But social media and Twitter in particular can be very toxic spaces because there's anonymity. You are abusing me on social media, and I don't know who you are. I can't come after you. But you are right. The abuse is horrendous, and we don't have data in this country, as far as I know. But in other countries, we have seen that suicide rates or suicidal feelings have gone up among young people in general, excuse me, but among young women in particular, because there's body shaming, there is stalking, there is a dismissing of the contributions that they bring to the table, and it is very, very disconcerting. It is it has led to high levels of anxiety among young people, and we fail to recognize the damage that it is doing. And as Kathleen said, sexual harassment is so much on the rise. And let me say this, we don't call out people. We don't have enough push for consequences for bad actions. And a counselor was telling me recently that she has had an increase in the number of young women coming to see her who have been sexually harassed or who have been raped. And a number of them are big men. She didn't mention any names to me. Big men in this country, they are politicians, they are pastors, they are bishops, and deacons, choir leaders, priests, and so on. And it is this unfettered, power and space that we have accorded to people in certain categories who invariably happen to be men, and there are no consequences. You know, people are found out. They are, maybe if it's bad enough, they might lose their job, but very often they are just shunted to another place. So this is not unique to Ghana, by the way. It's a global disease, but it is very present in this country. And as I said earlier, the dismissive way that these reports are treated. Oh, you people.
Thank you, Prof. I would bring in Kathleen again. I was hoping that Joyce would join you, but I know you have to go, and it's been a busy day for you. So thank you. Keep doing what you do. As what do you call it? What's the title? An activist scholar. An activist scholar. So activism on one hand, scholarship on the other, marrying those two very important roles. So thank you, Prof, for joining us. Let me come back in studio, and maybe I should take a quick break as well, and then I'll be joined by my other guests with Kathleen from the NCECE. This is The Point of View special show, International Women's Day, 8th March, discussing the role of women in our national discourse. Today, the State of the Nation was read as well. 30 years of democracy, strengthening the role of women in nation building. Stay with us.
We give you extra so you can go further.
Africana City is building bamboo bicycles to help children get to school.
Creamy Plus is a fully skimmed evaporated milk. Creamy Plus is available in a shop near you.
This message has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Welcome back to The Point of View. I have a special show for you tonight. Now we have a full house. My guests have been Professor Adoma Kwampofo, who's, she calls herself the activist scholar. Kathleen Adi, chairperson, NCCE. And now we have Joyce Boa Muktari, lawyer, politician, former deputy transport minister. And I guess you're still the spokesperson for President Mahama?
Yes, please.
Wonderful. Happy Women's Day.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Very well.
And how are you?
I'm surviving.
Great.
Yes, I'm surviving.
I love your spirit.
Tali, how did you celebrate the day? Both of your other panelists didn't really. There wasn't any special thing done.
Well, I think somehow we've all gotten accustomed to the whole notion about International Women's Day. And I think for those of us who are activists or advocates of gender activities, it's always a daily affair. So I think somehow today being set aside by the United Nations makes it a bit special. So in my case, normally the boss will have a statement, will edit, will decide on what to do, what to put out. The former First Lady will certainly have a statement, we work on it. And then of course, yours truly has to take a cue from them both. So I think as is the norm, that's exactly what I did. I put out a statement. But yes, there's a matter that I've been pushing and working on for years now, and it's to do with sanitary pads or towels for the girl child. It's a matter that is on my heart, and I was so elated when the lady reached out to me from PPAG last night and said, Auntie Joyce, you know your voice goes far. Please, whatever you do, speak out about what is happening to these young girls. You know, I believe that government at some point promised to remove import duties on sanitary towels. It hasn't been done. Government promised to create a certain enabling environment so that people could actually produce these pads here. I think it's also impossible. The cost of a little box of sanitary towels is no joke. And to think that some people even have to use diapers is simply something I can't begin to imagine. And look, Bernard, if you go to some of our villages in the hinterland, in the rural parts, girls simply stop going to school when they have a period. Absolutely. It's as serious as that. And I think we should all accept one thing, whether you like it or not, women will have a period. They will bleed just as they breathe. It will happen every month. Look, for some people, they can have periods for like 4 or 5 weeks, continuously without a break. Every young woman is different. But I think that we ought as a people to do something to make these pads available to. So that's your personal campaign? That is my personal campaign for today. Amazing. And I'm sure that everybody that I reached out to somehow actually jumped onto this bandwagon. And I think it is something that resonates with almost every female that I've met.
Let's talk about politics, because my first guest is an academic. My second guest, you can say, is public servant, NCC. But you are into politics. Do you feel like politicians ought to be doing much more for this gender question beyond? I mean, for example, they would say, oh, we are filing fees. We have X% cost for women and young people. They announce some things. But for example, number of women in parliament is not really improving. Number of women in minister positions for both governments is not that much. So what is it? You are now a very key person in the NDC. So maybe tell me what it is that the bottleneck is and how we can help you to improve that.
I think there's no commitment. I think we need to call on political parties to do more. We need to call on political parties to create better environments. Look, women suffer a lot of patriarchy. Women suffer a lot of discrimination. Look, even for us on our level, it takes a very strong-willed and strong-minded female to stay in this space for long. Yes, I must confess that as a person, I probably receive enormous support from a lot of women, and it's across the political divide. But it is not easy, Bernard. For most ordinary females, it is a daunting task, and they will tell you day in, day out, Joyce, I don't know how you do it. It is not an easy task at all. Think about it. How often would you expect a female, for example, to compete in this difficult terrain, appear on shows such as yours, visit also facilities? And you know, when it's a woman, people literally look into your heart, literally and figuratively. They want to find out everything about you. You know, someone said to me, you know, I can't stand the scrutiny. When we announce a male for whatever reason, how often do people ask, who is his wife? So who are his kids? So how many kids does he have? You don't hear that. But mention a female, you will be surprised. And then you know all the other questions. It's crazy. So I can understand. But you see, I also love the fact that there are a few of us who are making the difference. So people can tell that, look, you can be in politics and you don't have to be a crazy woman. You can be in politics and you don't have to wake up every morning and you are fighting with everybody else. You can even be in politics, not necessarily be in parliament, but you can still make an impact. You know, I have been very blessed. I think I've straddled academia, I've straddled politics, the law, in very interesting ways. Today, I was so touched when my sister Clara sent me a beautiful magazine, and I know that I'd actually been even featured as a female lawyer and spokesperson, I said to her, what an honor. It means that somebody notices that you are making a difference. It is not easy. And I would be, it would be remiss for me to think that it is something that everybody can do every day. Look at the numbers in Parliament. Think about it. I met a female parliamentarian who had just suddenly gotten married, and you should get them sometimes at midnight. How often can you do that for? And I mean, excuse me, how many men stand in for you and tolerate that? And ask her, even on her desk, the things that you have to go through, what you have to suffer, the commentary, the lies, the strange stories that you hear about yourself. And look, someone said to me, look, when your kids are at a certain age, you also have to be very conscious of the stories that come out about you, because it may actually even affect the kids more than even you, the adult. There are so many reasons. Then money, funding, funds, it's another challenge. Look, on average, to contest for an election in Ghana, you need on average at least 2 million Ghana cedis.
Just the parliamentary?
Just the parliament. And
on
this is
average?
Basic, on average. And this is research based. Where are you going to get the money from? How many females have that kind of money even to come out and support you? So you will still have to depend on the same men. You understand? So very few political parties can say, look, let's field women in all our orphan constituencies. So who will sponsor the party? Because it's the guys who have the money. At least so far I haven't. And it's not easy.
Is this something the NCC can advocate around affirmative action for women in politics, in other spheres? Is this within your remit, or this
It is certainly
is
within my remit, but I don't think this is an affirmative action issue.
Okay.
That is good, but it's more structural.
Okay.
For me, one of the things I said early this year when we did our beginning of year address on Constitution Day was the issue of the over monetization of the politics and how dangerous it is. So the overall monetization is an issue, but it hits women more in more diverse ways. It hits women because they have less by design, actually, because it's not by accident, it's by design. So it is something that we can look into. But for me, it really comes down to how we have monetized the politics. We just heard about 2 million cedis. That is money that most people, very few people will ever see even a quarter of in their lifetime, the full amount. What do you have to do to get that money? And so in the long run, when a woman makes it and comes through, then people assume that you must have compromised yourself in all kinds of ways in order to make it, because people know how costly it is, financially, socially, and everything to be able to get there. So then you face these problems. You didn't have money. You managed to, you had all the insults, the abuse, you managed to fight, you made it through, you come out at the end, and then people are looking at you funny because they just assume that you did something not quite right to get where you are. So at every stage, and then the higher you rise, the more difficult it gets. At every stage, the scrutiny is deeper, the stripping you to peel off your layers is more intense, and so it gets even more difficult as you go up. So as for the politics, the thing we have to tackle as a country is the monetization. It's dangerous.
Is the big animal in the room?
Yes.
You know,
I said I won't mention animal. I don't want problems.
So another issue: 30 years of democracy, or this constitution is 30 years old. NDC and NPP have been alternating power for a long time. There's a lot of disillusionment in the country. What are reflections on our democracy? In fact, when I read some of the Afrobarometer reports, people still prefer democracy, although they are like, you know what, it's not, it's almost like we prefer it as a matter of course, but inequality is increasing, inclusivity is not growing. I'm not even sure people can say economically they are much better off. You can say the poorest person now probably has more money than the poorest person 30 years ago, but the gap between the rich and the poor has grown much more. So I don't know, as a frontline politician, do these matters worry you at all when you're advising your boss? I'm pulling you in because I'm pulling everybody in based on the work they do.
A very direct one.
Yeah, because you have the ear of the candidate of the opposition party. It's a very powerful position to hold.
Yes, it is. That's true. Yes, that's true. Look, Bernard, whether we like it or not, we need to do more. And I believe I agree with Kathleen completely. Look, it goes beyond affirmative action. You know, I listened to someone today who said that His Excellency the President women in parliament. What have they done to push that bill? What are they doing to lobby for that bill to be passed? What is the effort they've put in? We saw the Nano Race of Ghana, how they chased the domestic violence bill, how they pushed and pulled, walking barefoot, all the things that they could possibly master, they did to have that domestic violence bill passed. Are we seeing that level of activism? Are we seeing that level of advocacy? We don't. So sometimes, even we get used to the idea that there's a certain tokenism. But I would say one thing. Ghanaian politics or politicians are not doing females a favor when they offer us positions such as chairperson of NCC, it's a very safe seat. It suits the woman. Please don't send the man to go and do a woman's job, and don't send the woman to do a man's job. Think about it. You understand? Since the days of Larry Bimi, we've only ever had women going there. And you hear them, they don't complain. How often do you hear Kat come out and say, we don't have any money, and push hard and grant interviews, a press conference? You know what I mean? Women are very cautious, and we don't like to rock the boat too much. She's working very hard, but I'm working underground. Joyce, I need you to speak to this person. Why do you have to invite me to your house?
So we need more women in leadership.
Absolutely.
To improve the quality of what we get.
And not just because you must do more. When you occupy that space, let's hear your voice.
Okay.
Up a course and fight for it. Let's not hear the speaker, for example, say that, today is International Women's Day. Tell all the women I'm here for you. That is just, think about it. Speaker is a man I have enormous respect for. I know he wants to promote women. But that is...
You can't say that.
No, you can't.
That's not what we expect to hear.
You ought not to say that. I don't even want to hear you say that. I want to see a female stand up and speak passionately about something that affects all of us. And take it up as a course. Let me hear her do it Monday, Tuesday, until it gets results. The Constitution says don't discriminate. But it's not going to come to your doorstep and say, look, this is what the Constitution says. Please move out. You're a lady, try and do it. No. How many examples can we continue to give? It won't work. We need to do more. And I think the women who find themselves in these spaces, who have voices, ought to learn to use those voices and use it effectively.
Let's talk about something controversial. Election that's coming, a lot of people, as you say, everybody says the matter of elections. People are very concerned. They are tired of the two parties, but every year we keep changing. What is, first, in terms of NCC, your job is cut out. What are you supposed to do to ensure that the brinkmanship that we see at every election does not tip over? I guess that's within your remit, right?
Yes, of course, with others. But let me just say that, some positions require that one is tactful. And because for NCC, it's such a delicate balance that if you push in a certain direction too hard, you lose the people you're trying to pull along. So for NCC in particular, much as it is important that you are seen out there pushing and fighting, it's even more important that you are tactful and congratulate the new executive.
You've been working on.
Yes. She makes so my point.
You went to the NDC head office.
Yes,
but
to meet
her steps were
mosquito and
yes.
To congratulate them on their.
Yes.
You went with your team
and to build a relationship that will help us so that when things get tough, we have windows and doors that we can step into. It's a critical part of the work.
I didn't make noise about it. Is that a typical?
As well. No. I mean, there will be we will. It's not.
Maybe it's tactical. I'm
saying that in this particular job, you have to have first emotional intelligence, and you have to be tactical in the things that you do. And much as it's important that you come out and say things all the time, that may not be. You could do that and get the public to say yay, but what's the impact? What's the real impact? You may not get any real impact. Real impact is when you can do things and arrange things in such a way that you can even have impact without the public knowing. So one of the things we do in NCC is that we work in such a way that you don't even realize the work is going on because everything is normal. But assuming that one of our IPDCs in the district collapses and there's problem and the problem escalates and blows up, You will say that, but why didn't this person do this? But they are doing it all over the place, but you will not see. So I don't think that it's the same type of thing that every kind of woman in public has to do. It's different types of things for different people. Yes, I think
we'll invite you back to discuss the election, so don't worry about that.
No, but about the election and this advocacy role, it's certainly our space. We are actively working on it. I told you today, I went to see the head of Church of Pentecost. I'm talking to all the heads of the religious institutions. I'm talking to the politicians. I'm talking to all the stakeholders, because we have to build a coalition that will keep this country stable and keep this country peaceful and go over the next election. Wars are fought on the bodies of women. You understand? People capture they capture women as
a trophy,
as something against you. The women become a pawn that people acquire and destroy in the process of conflict and war. So all of these things are linked. Our work is highly gendered.
Yes, and my time is highly limited. So I'll give you 30 seconds. Your final word to viewers.
Well, I would say very simply, Bernard, that I think that females should actually make their voices heard more. And when you talk about having your voice heard, I don't think you are referring to a certain argumentative, unnecessary debates. No, but I think we should be more impactful. We should be results-oriented. We should actually focus on the things that matter. And I think that the more young people see females who take these spaces and use them effectively, then the better it will be for all of us. I think that is genuinely what we need. But
thank you very much.
Don't think that you're doing women a favor when you offer a few of these positions
at all. And thank you for making time to come. It's a busy day for all of you. Joyce Mukhtari, lawyer, politician, spokesperson for President Mahama, Kathleen Addy, chairperson NCCE, and Professor Akusi Adomako Ampofo, who was with us earlier on. Just a solid academic talking to us. Thanks for watching. Happy International Women's Day. We'll do our best to keep bringing more women onto the show so we can have a richer discussion. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Hello and welcome to City's